So what you just heard is a video that they played exclusively for people at the CPAC event that took place today. Of course, the date is Saturday, March 2nd, 2019. And that video that I played at the beginning was shown to the audience. And I think it's a pretty great video. I've showed a few people and they absolutely loved it. Because it breaks down basically everything that's going on left of center. There's not really a center anymore, it seems. People have lost their minds. I mean, we have went through some crazy times in the last couple of years. It's like a one big temper tantrum, it seems. Once Trump was elected, it's like it kicked it off. It's like the election of Trump was the equivalent to Mama telling you that you can't have the candy bar at Walmart. And half of America is the 2-year-old that's kicking and screaming in the floor at the checkout. That's what this country's become in 2019, and it's crazy. When you look at basically anything that the guy does, whether it's good or not, they're upset about it. You know, it's like their whole agenda, their whole platform is based around, we got to do the exact opposite of whatever it is that Trump does. So, as an example, the whole North Korean summit just wrapped up in Vietnam. And Trump went and did something that Obama never did, and many others, not just Obama, but presidents before him never did. He went and opened a line of communication between us and the North Koreans, a nuclear power. And of course the whole conversation was centralized around making a deal that would denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, which means it would make the world safer for everybody. And of course you have those on the left that are mad about it. I don't understand that. If you're watching this or listening to this and you would like to explain to me why you're so angry that Trump is negotiating to try to denuclearize North Korea, please reach out to me and give me a reason. Actually, if you make any sort of point at all, I would invite you to come on the show and talk about it with me. So reach out by all means. I'm not afraid to have this conversation with you if you disagree. So basically, the summit, the second summit between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, wrapped up early because we walked away from negotiations. And the reports are, and the president has said himself, that North Korea was willing to shut down one of its main facilities, I guess. It was willing to partially give up a portion of its nuclear plans and capabilities, but not all. And the North Koreans were insisting on, in return for doing so, that the United States remove all sanctions. So not a portion of the sanctions, all sanctions. And that was just not something we were willing to do. Luckily, the president walked away, and he stated that no deal is better than a bad deal. which we know from previous administrations that they are sometimes tempted to take a bad deal than to walk away with no deal. Like Obama with the Iran nuclear deal. He took a bad deal, I guess for publicity or whatever. And the media spun it in his favor and said that it was a great deal and this and that. It was great that they were getting like billions and billions of dollars from us, being shipped to them, and there was really no way to verify whether or not they were denuclearizing. So that was a bad deal. That's why it's now over, and that deal is no longer valid because Trump made it his mission to either renegotiate or, basically start from scratch on that. But back to North Korea. It seems like we're coming a long way. I want people to understand, when Obama left office, he said the number one threat was North Korea. And now we see the North Koreans are not they're not testing their missiles. They're not doing any kind of test or anything like that. That's already an improvement from where we were 3 years ago. So that in itself is an improvement. It's, we're making progress the right direction. But now we're actually having negotiations, and these things take time. There's people that are very impatient, it seems, that expect for all of this to be done in 2 or 3 meetings. It's a very delicate process that's drawn out. I want you to step back and think about this now. If you were a small country like North Korea, and you had nuclear capabilities that you had been building for the last several decades, you would not hand that over easily. It would take a reasonable amount for you to hand over that. That's their main line of defense, really. If you want to argue it, it's like a security blanket. So it would be effectively like disarming yourself. Of course, they still have their military and so on and so forth. I'm not saying they're completely vulnerable, but they would be giving up a lot in order to do that. And the president said the same thing, that he understands, they spent all this time building this nuclear arsenal, and, he understands that he's not ready to give it all up yet. So it will take time, okay? Like the negotiations between Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev of the Soviet Union, it took years to have negotiations with them. And that's how most serious diplomatic negotiations go. They are not fast in most cases. So he did, in my opinion, he did the right thing by walking away. Because if you remove all sanctions, what bargaining chip do we have to offer outside of that? So, if they agree to let's say, dismantle or give up a portion of their nuclear capabilities, but then they can just focus all the resources on another location, and they can continue. They're still a nuclear power. They can basically do the same thing. They just have to shift resources around. Meanwhile, if we did that deal, we would have removed the sanctions, and we essentially, I'm not sure what other bargaining chip we would have had other than to threaten, war with North Korea. That's about the only bargaining chip we would have had left in my mind. So it's a good thing that we don't give up everything for half of what we're asking. And that's good in any case, no matter the circumstances. So that's what took place this past week in Vietnam. I call it Vietnam. A lot of people call it Vietnam. Well, we're from the South, and just that sort of slang around here, where they call it Nam, back in Nam. So I'm calling it Vietnam. Whether that's appropriate or the proper way to pronounce it, I don't really care. This is my show here, so stay off my back. So anyway, Vietnam, that's where all this went down. They cut the meeting short, and the president flew back, and he made a stop in Alaska, and I seen where he addressed the military in Anchorage, Alaska, in an airport hangar, thanked them, and so on. Excuse me, I had to yawn now. No, it's been a long week for me. Been a long week. Been a very busy week. That's why I haven't made a podcast or a video in a while, because I've been busy. But now here we are. It's the weekend, so I'm going to try to drop one of these every weekend, whether it be Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to do my best to drop one each week, talking about the stuff that transpired the week before, or that week. They had the CPAC conference today with conservatives. I didn't get to watch it. I'm planning on watching it probably sometime after this. After recording this, I'll get to watch it and check everything out. What else is going on? Oh, I seen something about there was a bipartisan bill that was a gun control measure to basically enforce background checks on private sales of unlicensed firearms dealers. So basically, to put it simple, in common man terms, like flea market sales, and like if say your neighbor had a gun for sale, he needed the extra cash, you wanted to buy the gun. Under this new bill, the neighbor would have to do like a background check, or you would have to participate in a background check through a process. You probably would have to pay a fee, because the government's involved. They always going to get their money to do that. Which I don't know the full details of the bill. If it's just that, if it's just making sure that everyone that purchases a firearm has a background check, I'm not really that opposed to it. If it's just a background check, when they start banning weapons, and they start taking stuff out of your hands, and they start registering you, and you register already, and that's done so they know where the weapons are. That way, if it ever does come to it, they know exactly where you are, who's got what, and they know what you have, so that way they know what to get from you in case they ever need to. So I'm not a fan of the registering, but I understand background checks. If we can stop bad people from getting guns, I understand that. Now, this was bipartisan, meaning both sides supported it in some aspects. Probably not everybody, but the Republicans introduced an amendment to this legislation that would require, if any illegal immigrant were to purchase a firearm, it would immediately notify ICE. And the Democrats rejected that. So I want you to understand something. They want to make sure that you and I have to go through a background check. But they don't want illegals that we have no information on whatsoever. Could be gang members, could be, cartels, could be drug dealers, could be anybody. They want illegals to get by without having a background check. And so I found this very ironic. They want gun control, but they don't really want it for illegals. They only want it for the citizens, which I found really odd. And, and like I said, it seems like it was bipartisan. They just wanted to add that in, add that as a piece of it, where if an illegal is trying to buy a weapon in the United States, that ICE would be notified. when they tried to do so. And yeah, the left did not like it, apparently. And I'm not sure of the support now. This is just what I've heard in the last week. But I thought that was very interesting that they want to they want to restrict you and me, but they don't want to allow us to monitor and report when illegals buy weapons in the United States, which I thought was very telling about where they actually stand. And there's actually the radical left, I guess you would call it, where they're talking about abolishing ICE and getting rid of ICE altogether. So there would be no deportations or containment of these illegal immigrants here, whether they're criminals or not. There would be basically nothing to stop them. So, I guess you could throw them in our prison system. Well, they have no identification. You don't know who these people are. And we don't need to throw them in our prison system. We have too many people in our prison system as it is on BS charges. If you're talking about moving the people with BS charges out and putting these guys in, I could see it, but still, we shouldn't be paying to take care of people that aren't even a citizen. If they're a citizen, fine, okay, whatever, don't like it, but sure. But these are people that aren't even citizens. They just come over here and commit crime, and then we basically would house them, feed them, put a roof over their head. Jail's not great, but it's great in the sense that you have somebody taking care of you, and that's the taxpayers of the U.S. So that's the whole gun control measure that they're proposing now. I just thought that was, pretty interesting. What else was going on? Oh, they had the Cohen hearing, of course. How could I forget? So, in the middle of this very important meeting between world leaders trying to denuclearize the North Korean peninsula, or the Korean peninsula, the Democrats decided that they were going to have a hearing with Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal attorney, who was going to prison for lying to Congress. They decided they were going to re-question him at the exact same time that this world meeting is going on. So while the president is trying to negotiate for peace in the world and make it a safer place, they have a sideshow going on back in Washington where they're interviewing a guy that's a known perjurer, a liar, committed like tax fraud, bank fraud, so on and so forth. Actually, I did catch 2 or 3 hours of that hearing and found it very interesting. Which I'm sure you can find this online if you really want to watch the Michael Cohen hearing between the House Oversight Committee was the ones that conducted this. And basically, Cohen comes out and he says that Trump is a liar and a racist and a cheat. And basically everything that he said Trump was applied to him, outside of maybe the racist thing. So the thing about the racist thing was he couldn't prove any of that. It was just hearsay. But yeah, he called him like a cheat and a con man. And this is the guy that's going to prison for bank fraud and lying to banks in order to get loans and so on and so forth. So it was just ironic. Listening to that was ironic when they questioned him about it. He was basically guilty of everything he was accusing the president of being. So it was, this was all going on while this world meeting was happening. And I think he spent 3 days in Washington testifying. 1 was in public, 2 behind doors. So, basically what they used Cohen for was to get him to drop names so that they can interrogate more people. So there's going to be more people testifying in the weeks to come. Alan Dershowitz, I think is his name. He's the CFO of the Trump Organization. He's most likely going to definitely be called. He was probably the most mentioned person in the Cohen hearing. So Cohen basically dropped these names. He named Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump, and Alan Dershowitz. I think that's his name. I'm hoping that's the right guy. It's one of those weird last names. He dropped several names, which is basically going to give them more people to ask questions to. So that'll be coming up. There'll be more hearings. You'll hear about it. So that's really the whole point of that hearing. That's what they got out of it. And I think the whole thing that they're going into now, because this has nothing to do with Russia collusion. In fact, Cohen said he had no proof or evidence to suggest that the Trump or the Trump campaign colluded with Russia. So, in my opinion, what this whole circus deal that's going on now with the whole Stormy Daniels payment and, asset inflation and deflation and all this, what's going on is they're using it as a plan B, in my opinion, because the Mueller report is about to drop and we've not heard of any solid evidence or any clues that indicate that there's any Russian collusion. So this is like their plan B. They're setting up their plan B. So whenever if it drops and there's nothing there and there's no collusion, they have this to fall back on. They're going to fall back on the moral, ethical, campaign finance, hush payments. They're going to fall back on all this stuff. This is going to be their plan B. And they're going to push it all the way into the 2020 election, which is really, it's really crazy how they're doing this. Because what has happened is they jumped the gun. They went straight for the extreme and accused the president of basically treason, working with Russia in order to win the election. And it's like the ultimate conspiracy theory. You remember, I don't know if you remember the term McCarthyism, where back in the Cold War days, a guy would accuse everyone of being a communist, like of being a Russian spy, and he did it so much that they coined the term McCarthyism, where if you accuse somebody of being a Russian spy for political reasons, that's what they referred to it as, McCarthyism. That's exactly what's going on now. Basically, they're trying to say that Trump is a Russian spy or a Russian agent that works for Vladimir Putin, which I find ironic, considering Putin has been threatening us and talking about a new Cuban Missile Crisis. And, and Trump has been a lot more serious and a lot more aggressive against the Russians than, say, Obama was. I mean, we've even killed Russian troops in Syria. And we bombed the Russian allies in Syria, the Assad regime. We bombed their airfields and stuff, which Obama never did. He drew a red line in the sand and then never did anything about it. So I find it ironic that Putin would be attacking his spy or threatening his spy all the time. But who knows, maybe it's just me. When I bring that up, they say he's just doing that as a cover. That's just his cover, is that he's they get crazy. It's like a conspiracy theory. They used to call everybody conspiracy theorists whenever you talked about Hillary's emails, which are admitted, that she did. She had an unsecure server in her basement with top secret national security information on it, which was definitely accessed. And who knows what she, firsthand did with that. But you were a conspiracy theorist if you talked about that or believed that actually happened. Fast and Furious with Eric Holder and the Obama administration. You were a conspiracy theorist if you believed that we were giving guns to the cartels in order to promote gun control. That came out. Eric Holder lied to Congress. Wasn't prosecuted or indicted. Hillary lied to Congress. Wasn't prosecuted. So yeah, and then you got it's a one-way road, where you got these people on these bogus charges, lying to Congress, lying to the FBI, and it could be something as simple as a date, or something very simple and small and minuscule, and they charge them for it to the fullest extent. Meanwhile, these other people like Hillary and Eric Holder and so on, they are let go with nothing, not even a slap on the wrist. So it's definitely a double standard, depending on who you are. But I, for one, am glad that this whole Russia investigation is coming to an end, and we'll see very soon if this has been a waste of money and time and resources, and it's divided the country for sure. You can't say it hasn't, when all you hear nonstop is Russia collusion, Trump's working with the Russians, blah 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 blah. I'm so tired of hearing about it. Where's the proof? This is the same thing. I see people all the time saying, "Oh, he's working for the Russians. He's working for the Russians. Treason, treason." I'm like, well, I'm actually open-minded. I'm not really one-sided here. Just show me proof. Show me the evidence. There's not really any that ties Trump to Putin. There's nothing really. So until you can show us the evidence, we're not going to believe it. And evidence is not hearsay alone. When Cohen comes out, if Cohen actually said there was no Russian collusion that he was aware of, but if it's hearsay, if it's just a guy saying something happened and you can't prove it, and there's no evidence to back it up, and he can't prove it, that's not proof. That's called hearsay. I want people to understand that. You got one guy saying something, that's not proof. Proof is hardcore documentation, video, audio, etc. Proof of payment, proof of transactions, proof of meetings, and they don't really have anything. So I'm glad for this all to come to an end very soon. I'll be relieved, and we can kind of step back and look at everything else once this is out of the way, and focus on other things. In my opinion, they're way too focused on investigations and this conspiracy of Russia, that they don't really care about the issues, the policies, what's going on in the country. We all know about the whole deal with the border, over the wall and everything, where it was a bipartisan issue under Obama and other administrations, where everyone knew we needed to secure the border. Nobody ever did it. Now we have a president that's actually trying to accomplish that. Problem we've had for 20 years or longer, that everyone talked about but no one ever did anything about. Now we have a president that's actually trying to do that, and because of who he is, it's no longer bipartisan. Everyone knows. They gave Obama like $25 billion for border security when he was in office, and they refused to give Trump 5.7. Okay? He asked for 20% of the budget that Obama got, and he didn't even get that, which is why he's, declaring the national emergency and so on. So it's obviously there's a double standard there, and I'm not saying a wall would fix everything, but you can't tell me that it would be easier to get into the country with a barrier than without one, okay? You can tell me that it's still possible, sure, I'll listen to that. But you can't say it will be easier or it won't have any effect on illegal immigration at all, because that's not true, obviously. I mean, if you go and pretend you're a we'll say you're a bank robber, you walk into the bank and the money's just laying on a table, there's no vault. Is it easier or harder to get the money? It's going to be easier, right? So if they put it in a vault, does that make it easier or harder? Common sense here. Same thing, it's the same principle with the wall. So a wall is not going to make it easier on illegal immigrants to come in. It's going to make it harder, obviously. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's going to make it harder. It's going to make it easier for us to stop it. So I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. We talk about the cost of it. A wall, if you built the wall one time like $25 billion, I think was the proposal it would take to build the wall completely. You build the wall one time and you're going to save billions in return on people crossing over here through their costs to the economy and so on. It's going to end up saving us money in the long run. So I understand and I support having a barrier on the southern border, especially when you have drugs, the sex traffickers, and gang members and drug cartels and all of these people coming in using it. I think they said, I heard this somewhere, so don't quote me on it, but like 70 or 80% of the women that come across the border get raped by the coyotes, the people that bring them over illegally and sneak them in, or they'll just be abandoned. The coyotes will get spooked and leave them stranded there by themselves. So yeah, I mean, this is a serious problem. We need to stop, sex trafficking and human trafficking. We shouldn't be just turning a blind eye to that. Which of course you have people on the left that are pulling their National Guard troops out. All their resources they're taking away from the border, claiming it's not really an emergency. It's only because the president supports it, and they feel like for whatever reason they have to oppose everything that Trump does. So that's the situation that we have going on at the border. It's just laughable sometimes. Some of this stuff is crazy. And now you have the extremes coming in. Like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming over. And she's like talking about the Green New Deal and shit, And obviously this isn't going to work. I mean, they want to ban gasoline-powered vehicles and ban air travel and make everyone ride a train. And they want to get rid of farting cows somehow. I don't know how they plan on doing that, but that's one of their plans. They want to get rid of farting cows. So, no beef, no exploring the world. People that live in Hawaii, I guess they're going to be just stuck over there. They're not allowed to come to the U.S. until I guess they build a train system that reaches across the Pacific Ocean over to that island. I guess they're stuck there, in case they... So if you're even on vacation in Hawaii, I guess you'll have a new life to start over there. it's just insane, these ideas. And then you have so many people jump on it so fast. It's like they didn't even look at it. They didn't even think about it. They said, okay, yeah, we like that. Yeah, we support it. $93 trillion is what this proposal would cost. $600,000 per household. I think they said something about your electric bill would shoot up 300%. They're wanting to redo every building and make it either solar or wind powered. And actually, Trump at CPAC made a joke. He's mocking this proposal, the Green New Deal, and he's like, "Honey, I want to watch TV today. Is the wind blowing?" And it's basically, it's so laughable that these people, honestly, I don't get it. Like, I know why they're doing it. They're doing it only for voters. They don't even believe